Alright y'all, we got a Victorian era murder today, sticking to the theme since y'all seem to really like this era of history, which is fine because there's a lot of creepy stuff that happened back then, so let's just go on ahead and talk about it. A highway marker in Greenbrier County, West Virginia near the town of Smoot bears the following inscription. Interred nearby cemetery is Zona Heaster Shue. Her death in 1897 was presumed natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband Edward. Autopsy on the exhumed body verified the apparition's account. Edward, found guilty of murder, was sentenced to the state prison. Only known case in which testimony from ghosts helped convict a murderer. But who were Zona and Edward? What are the facts surrounding this strange case? We're gonna find out more today. But first, welcome to Creepycasettiyt, your place for horror in reality and beyond. I am your host, Dee, and if this sort of content fascinates you, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and notification bell so you'll know every time I drop another video. And if you know someone who may also find this video fascinating, please share. All of these actions really help the channel. Plus, I want to hear more from you all, even if you just tell me about your day. I'm trying to create a community here, so let's chat. Now back to the video. Keep in mind that the story has been passed down verbally by the townspeople for centuries at this point. I've pulled all the pertinent facts that align with every article I've read so far on the story, so I'm just gonna give it to you as I was given it. Especially seeing as I'm pretty sure all the people who would have been there to corroborate the facts are no longer alive. But here we go. Elva Zona Heaster was born and raised in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, the middle child in a devoutly religious family with 5 children, and she the only girl. Zona was an attractive woman, well liked by her community. She did give birth out of wedlock when she was 21 or 22 years old with a man named George Woldridge, which we know in the 1890s could be the very thing to completely ruin a lady's reputation, but she did alright. Woldridge did not have the money or a job and therefore could not afford to care for a family, so he avoided marriage, and it's not clear what happened to the child following birth, nor how Zona lived out the last few months of her pregnancy. Zona was out with her family one day in October 1896 when they went to the new local blacksmith shop. There, Zona met Erasmus Stribling Trout Shue. Erasmus was in his early 30s when he rode into town, and he was considered a mysterious and hot-tempered gentleman. By this point, Shue was going by the name Edward, and he must have really caught Zona's eye because she returned to the shop a few days later without her family. During her visit, she let Shue know that she was interested, and their short courtship began. And I do mean short, because they eloped not long after, against the wishes of Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster. She didn't trust Shue, and it's not clear why. It could have been mother's intuition, but if she knew Shue's past, I'm sure that would have helped her disdain for the man, although it's not clear how much she knew about Shue's life prior to his move to Greenbrier County. Shue had been married 2 times before. His first wife divorced him for abandoning her, their child, and accused him of unspeakable cruelty. He was married a second time and widowed by an unfortunate accident. He was working on the roof of a home he and his second wife shared in Pocahontas County when a brick fell from the roof and hit her on the head. It was reported as an accident, but considering what we are about to find out about Shue and Zona, I'm inclined to believe it may not have been an accident. Aside from the 2 previous marriages, there was also his 2-year stint in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for horse theft. Just 3 months into Shue's marriage, on January 23rd, 1897, Shue went around to a house near the blacksmith shop to ask the family's young son to go back to his house and find out if Zona needed anything from the store. When the boy got to the house, he found Zona laying in the middle of the floor, dead. We ran back to Shue to report what he'd seen, and Shue sent for the doctor and headed back to the house. When Dr. Knapp arrived almost an hour later, he found distraught Shue crying over the body of his wife. Dr. Knapp attempted to resuscitate Zona. When his attempt proved unsuccessful, Shue asked the doctor not to perform any further examination and instead help him dress her body, which for the time was odd in and of itself, considering women traditionally handled the funerary obligations, which included preparing the body for burial. The 2 men dressed Zona in the only nice dress she owned, the high-collared burgundy wedding dress she had worn just a few months before. They took a veil, folded it several times, tied it into a bow, and placed it under her chin. Her initial cause of death reveals as everlasting faint, and then changed changed to childbirth, which I'm not entirely sure how they came to that conclusion. How would they even know she was pregnant without an examination? But whatever. The very next day, a funeral was held for Zona. Shu stood before the coffin, blocking the Heaster family from getting too close. When Zona was being moved, some of the funeral guests noticed that her neck was unusually unstable. She was buried in the town cemetery without any charges being brought up against Shu. Over the course of 4 nights, Mary Jane Heaster had seen images of her daughter's ghost. One time, she stated Zona told her that Shu had killed her because there was no meat cooked when he came home. A second time, she showed how she had been murdered by twisting her neck 180 degrees, showing that her neck had been snapped off at the first joint. The other dreams, I assume, were just Zona coaxing her mother to report her murder. Mary spent hours convincing the county prosecuting attorney, John Alfred Preston, of Shu's guilt in Zona's murder. Thankfully, he didn't blow her off and instead re-interviewed a few people, including Dr. Knapp. The attorney learned that Dr. Knapp had been asked not to perform any further exam and was just asked to help dress the body, which appeared to be enough for further investigation. On February 22, 1987, Zona was exhumed and her body was taken to the one-room schoolhouse for autopsy. The autopsy took 3 hours to complete, and they discovered that her neck had been broken, windpipe crushed, and finger imprints left in her skin, all signs of strangulation. Shu was charged with her murder and went to trial. Mary Jane Heaster was brought forward as a witness. Regardless of badgering from Shu's lawyer, she stuck to her story. Even though the judge tried to throw out the spectral evidence, public opinion was swayed. People believed Shu had murdered Zona and that her ghost had returned to help defend herself. The jury deliberated and came back with the verdict after an hour. They convicted Shu of murder and he was sentenced to life imprisonment on July 11, 1897. A lynch mob was formed to pull him from the prison and kill him, but the deputy sheriff quickly disbanded the group of vigilantes. There was no motive given for why Shu would have killed his wife, and for that reason, some people did not believe that he killed Zona. The prevailing theory was that her murder was unplanned. He had flown into a fit of rage and ended up killing her. He lived another 3 years behind bars before succumbing to a local flu epidemic. He was buried in an unmarked grave in 1900. Well, what do you think? Did Shu kill Zona? How would you react if a ghost of someone you love showed up and asked you to avenge them? Maybe you don't believe in ghosts. I do though, so I'd be doing my own research, I guess. I probably wouldn't tell the authorities that I saw a ghost though. I'm sure they'd probably try to have me committed. Anyway, bye friends. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I love you to pieces and thank you for watching. See you soon.